Habib, Zoj. I can't do straight black. I tried it. If I sip it and it's in very small sips, it's like pretty much. Pretty much. 2 sugars, 1 cream. The cream is actually where my conscience is because I don't really favor the dairy, or it doesn't favor me. I should say. طيب. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. إن الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد عليه صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. أما بعد. We want to jump, inshallah ta'ala, into a quick review from the previous class concerning Mustalahul Hadith, the science of Hadith, the technicalities of Hadith, the guidelines and principles of Hadith. And we are only discussing the mubadi, the introductory affairs, that an individual that is being presented this science for the first time, the door that they would go through. And this is the door that every individual that is entertaining the science of Hadith, this is the door that they would go through. These affairs of the mubadi, introductory, format, and issues. There may be some variance on specifically which point an individual may present first, then second, then third. But collectively, all of these affairs are from amongst the mubadi. What we took previously dealt with the conditions for a hadith to be sahih. Conditions for a hadith to be sahih. And we mentioned that there were 5 conditions. Is anyone aware of any of these 5? Give me one.
The first connected chain of narrators transmitted by an individual. I'm sorry, a connected chain of narrators is the first one.
Connected chain of narrators. This is the first. There are 2 parts to what is referred to as a hadith. And a hadith is a narration, it is a story, it is that which is relayed that goes back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So in general, when you hear this term hadith, categorize it with a statement that is being relayed upon the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is not a statement that is going to go back to our forefathers. It is not a statement that is going to go back to the scholars. It is a statement that returns and refers back to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam when you hear that term hadith. So here, I'm going to erase this headline. When you hear this term hadith, it is a story / narration. It refers to a story or a narration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as we mentioned by the people of knowledge, so that an individual that may come afterwards that sees this on the board and they say, Abu Layla, You wrote that the hadith is a story or a narration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you didn't write sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we said, no, it's not stipulated that it must be written, but the concern is that the individual that hears the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's name and does not send the salam upon him, may this individual be disgraced. So it is mentioned, it is acknowledged, although it is not written. It is not stipulated that it must be written. So a hadith is a story or a narration of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the hadith has two components. One component is the isnad, the connected chain of narrators. This is referred to as the isnad or the chain. And it is a chain of men or women or men and women. As a point of benefit, something that was highlighted and mentioned by Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, in discussing the subtleties of the chain of narrators, in mentioning that we may say that it is the chain of men, typically. Although there are women inside of the chain, one of the subtleties that he mentioned, if you looked at a particular chain of narrators, and as Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, in his work, Al-Manzumatul Bayquniyya, his sharh of this poetry of the science of hadith, he mentions that the examples that we use for narrators are numbers. It makes it easy. So we don't have names. So we say, number one, narrated, to number two, narrated, to number three, narrated, to number four. So if we're doing English, one, narrated to two, who narrated to three, who narrated to four. If we take this English scale and we say that this individual was a male, and that this individual was a female, and that this individual was a male, and that this individual was a female. It's a connected chain. But Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that typically this is not the case, that a woman would be in the middle of a chain. He said typically a woman would be found at the end of the chain. And why is that? He mentioned because of the scarcity of women moving about to interact and intermingle with men. He said this is why typically when you look at the science of hadith and you study the chain, for the most part, there are no women in the chain. And if they are there, they're at the end. And those women are the wives of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, typically. But the subtlety that we want to point out is that they're not in the midst of the chain because of the lack of interaction and intermingling with the men. Even though this was a prestigious and pristine generation, it still shows you وَقَرْنِ فِي بُيُوتِكُنَّ, and stay in your homes. It's highlighted within the science of hadith. It comes to the surface and you see that even amongst individuals that they knew, ayat were coming down referring to them as upright, sound men that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was pleased with. They still never intermingled or interacted with them. So this is just from the subtleties of the science of hadith. So now, This is a typical isnad. One narrates to two, who narrates to three, who narrates to four. This is the isnad. This is one component of a hadith. The other side of the hadith, it is the matan, and that is the isnad. The isnad is the chain of individuals. The matan is the actual text. So with the hadith, it is going to be the statement of, if we realize that a hadith in general, that term typically refers to a statement or a narration of the Prophet, not our forefathers, not the companions, typically, because there is some discussion amongst the people of knowledge, but typically, overwhelmingly, that term hadith is used for a story or a narration that relays back to the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the chain of narrators, this is one of the qualities of a hadith that is sahih. It's isnad. Its counterpoint, the chain of men are relaying information. So there's two parts. And this is important because when you start to study the science of hadith and you start to see where are the weaknesses, where are the issues of concern with the people of hadith, you're going to now subcategorize. Is it with the chain or is it with the information? So it lets you cut to the chase a little easier. If they say that so and so, lahu su'ul hifd, he has weak memorization, I'm going to an individual inside of the chain. We're not dealing with what he relayed. My concern is his memorization. If it is an issue of what is being uttered or what is being said, it's now in the body of the statement of where they hold, there is some type of inconsistency here. There is some type of flaw. Now,
I have three questions. I don't want to get ahead of you, but I think because you're talking now about Mustalah Hadith, it's important for us to be able to ask the question that we can benefit from later down the road.
taban, naturally.
So my first question is, are riwayas that are Hassan, are they specified? Are they specified by categorization, being um, that the isnam is the problem or the matan is the problem? Do they classify them like that? Okay,
They do.
they do.
They do.
Okay. Does anybody not understand the question that I'm asking? Okay, the question that I'm asking him is, do they classify hadith as we based upon the text or based upon the chain? And he's saying that they do. They do classify them like that. That's the first question I have. The second one, and
Okay. When you get at Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned that hadith in terms of acceptance and rejectance. And this is very important because the lens, this is actually crucial. This is crucial to you understanding the science of hadith, what I'm about to say, inshallah ta'ala. The lens upon which you see a particular topic is very crucial to you understanding the science of hadith. Again, the lens or the focus of how you see the science of hadith is very crucial to you understanding it. So why do I say that? There is a lens of looking at hadith in terms of acceptance and rejectance. Just the concern is about, are we accepting it? Are we rejecting it? And what comes along with that? There is a lens of how we see the science of hadith in terms of who do we associate that statement to? To the Prophet, to the companions, to the tabi'un. There is a lens when it comes to the science of hadith in dealing with, there are various aspects, if we would say. The main concern is that you have to know when to shift lenses, or else you will jumble everything up, you'll get confused, and you'll make errors. Right now, we're looking at the science of hadith min haythu as-sihha wa-da'f, in terms of authenticity and weakness. So we need to understand what is a authentic hadith, a sahih hadith, and what is a weak hadith. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned in terms of categorizing hadith from the lens of acceptance and rejectance, there is 5 categories. The hadith that is sahih, which I gave you. Skip a line or break. The hadith that is Hassan. So the hadith that is sahih, we refer to it as being sound and complete. It's wholesome. The hadith that is Hassan is just merely good. Meaning there's something that could be beyond it, and there's definitely something lesser than it. It's just in a good status. If you are a B average student, you're a good student, but there are students that are better than you. And no doubt there are students that are weaker than you. But we still will acknowledge you're a good student. So there is some leeway. We're acknowledging you're not at the bottom of the pack, but you're not at the elite status. You're not at what we would say the honor students. So we have Sahih, we have Hassan, and we had Darif. These were 3. Mind you that I mentioned that the first 2 would break into another category. So Sahih would break into a subcategory. That would give us 4. And Hassan would break into another subcategory. That would give us a total of 5. Hassan and Sahih are of 2 types. They were of 2 types. I wanted to present it in its simplest form. And that which is common and aware to the people, when you say Sahih, they don't ask, is that Sahih لِذَاتِهِ or لِغَيْرِهِ? Is it Sahih itself, or has it been made Sahih by different routes and means? They don't ask this. طيب. طيب. 1, do you want me to do it in Arabic or English or? طيب. Okay, I'll write it in English and I'll follow behind it in Arabic for time's sake. The first one, it is Sahih by itself. And this is referred to as, I'll come behind and write it in a different color to separate it. Then this third one, because we're skipping 2, but I gave it to you as the second. It is Hassan. It's good. by itself is sound. It's good. This one here is what's sound and complete. This one here is good by itself. The last one, because we're gonna skip because we mentioned this breaks into two categories. The last one is weak, Darif. So I'll follow behind now with another color so that you can see the distinction. Number 2. And this is where my other than itself, which should raise the consciousness and awareness that the narration that is sahih by other than itself, it itself, yahtaj ila ghayri, it needs something else. So if it needs something else, it itself is going to be included with what it needs to qualify for this status. So I have to have two components now. Two components. I need two hadith. A hadith is a chain of men or women or both with a statement. If that narration is not sahih, it could be sahih, but not by itself. Because out of the 5 conditions that we're still going to review and enumerate, there could be a weakness in one area that we say this area qualifies to be supported. Where if it is, it's removed from this category and is now supported and uplifted to the next category. Sahih by itself. Sahih li dhati, like the that of Allah, the self of Allah. The hadith that is sahih li dhatihi, it itself, it is sound. There's no quarrel, there's no complaint, there's no contradiction, there's no fault to the narration. It has all 5 of its qualities. The hadith that is sahih by other than itself, sahih li ghayrihi, it's been made sahih but by other than itself. That next condition, if we can keep them in the order of how they were presented, the first one was ittisal al-sanad. Binaqli, transmitted by whom? What type of person is narrating, transmitting this information? An individual of upright character. Upright character. This is the second. There's another aspect of the narrator within himself. Collectively, it's a chain of these individuals. But individualized, specifically this individual, he himself has upright character, and there's another quality to him as a narrator. And that is, you said it? Say it again, Sheikh. Completion. There's accuracy. We might say perfection. In memory. You can write memorization. I want to save some of the board, inshallah. This completion or accuracy or perfection of the individual's memorization, this is the quality that you have to highlight. If you want to make the distinction, as noted by the people of knowledge, between the hadith that is sahih by itself, he has completion, he has accuracy, he has perfection in his memorization, between the narration that we're going to say at this point is good by itself. The individual, his narration will not be sahih, his narration will be Hassan, it will be good if there is imperfection. There is notable imperfection in the accuracy, in the memorization. It is still at a high level, but it is not at the level of the individual who is sahih. There's almost completion, perfection. And we know infallibility and perfection is for Allah Azza wa Jal. But in terms of the accuracy, in terms of the memorization, the recollection, the individual is able to take the narration as heard and relay it back as heard with few mistakes. Mistakes are allowed. Imperfection is allowed, but it's very scant, it's very faint compared to the total body of work of his memorization. The individual that falls lesser than that, we would say, we're going to take your narration, but we're not going to grade you as the individual who's stronger than you. So to make the distinction now, this is where we have good by itself, sahih by itself. I'm gonna give to you, Sheikh. To fill in the last one, and then the questions from you and from myself, inshallah. It is good by other than itself. So now, what is important? You understand my source for a hadith being graded has 5 qualities. If I take reign of these 5 qualities, I can now determine who is authentic by itself, who is authentic by other than itself, who is good by itself, who is good by other than itself, based off of the presence or the absence of those qualities. We're missing 2. What are the last 2? So we have a connected chain from beginning to end. The narrator within himself or herself is of upright character, thereof excellent memorization. The 4th quality, no conflicts, or inconsistencies. This is a E. An example of a conflict or an inconsistency. Sheikh Mustafa narrates the narration, and he says that the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he shortened his salat when he got to Dhul Hudayfa, this particular location of a miqat. And then I say, no. He shortened his salat when he was at the mountain of Uhud. This is a conflict. It's a clear, open conflict. I'm part of the chain. Mustafa's part of the chain. I have, as a narrator, upright character within myself and Deen. So does Sheikh Mustafa. Now the issue of memorization. My memory and Sheikh Mustafa's memory are on the same caliber. However, now, there's an inconsistency or there's a conflict within our statements. Or rather, I would say your memory is greater than mine. Given that Sheikh Mustafa is stronger in memorization than myself, my narration now becomes shadh. And then we say, well, you're an upright individual. We say, we're not just totally dealing with deen. We're dealing with recollection. And I can recall it. But my recollection and Sheikh Mustafa's recollection of the event, they vary and they differ. Sheikh Mustafa is known to be stronger, known to make lesser mistakes. They say in this situation now, his narration is the one that is mahfuz. His narration is the one that we are going to honor now. And even though you are an upright character, even though you have good memorization, your memorization is not like his narration. So your narration is viewed as being shad. It's kind of going against the grain. So they're not going to work with my narration. They're going to work with his narration based off of his memorization. And this is something that shows a conflict or an inconsistency in what is being narrated now. It's coming back to the isnad. It's coming back to a person in the chain. A quality of him is memorization. So that is the fourth. The fifth would be what? And this is very important that you understand that it's not severe. No severe conflict or opposition inside of the narration. Something that's just not blending. Can't be severe. When a narration has these qualities, it's connected. Its narrator is upright. He's strong in memorization. He has no conflicts, no inconsistency within his narration, and it is free of any major fault or conflict. That hadith is sahih. So I say now, I may have a narration because the individual, the memorization is not as accurate, complete, or perfect. It's a grade down. So that narration itself is Hassan. So he says the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he shortened his salah at Dhul Hulayfa. Sheikh Abdulaziz, he says the same thing. Bashir says the same thing. Our brother says the same thing. Another sister says the same thing. Each of you by yourself, because of your memorization, you've been graded as being just Hassan. You're good. Collectively now, we say, you know what? They're all saying the same thing. They're all good narrators. We have to boost this up. Which way am I going? Am I going here or am I going here? Again, you're good in your memorization. You're not complete or perfect. You're good. You're not complete or perfect. You're good. You're not complete or perfect. You're good. You're not complete or perfect. Neither is one of the sisters. Complete nor perfect. And we would not even have to go to this extent. You don't necessarily have to have 4 or 5. It could be lesser. However, you're at the status of being Hassan. There's some inconsistencies within your memorization that have reduced you from the level of being Sahih. So you're not in this discussion from the start. But the scholar, he looks through the narration and he says, Sheikh Mustafa, narration, good. Abdulaziz, good. Zainab, good. Bashir, good. Lau, good. We say, you know what, with all of this narration, in terms of accuracy, has now been reinforced. We can't leave it where it's at. It has to excel. It has to elevate to another level. Which level are we going to? Sahih is the only way up. That's the only status above a hadith that is Hassan. Remember, Sahih is of 2 categories now. Classify it correctly. Is it going to be Sahih by other than itself, or is it going to be sahih by itself? Tell me who says it's sahih. We'll start from top down. Tell me who says it's sahih by itself. Anyone? Who says it's sahih by other than itself? Abdulaziz. Limada. Why?
due to the fact that the chains of narrators all collaborate on the information that's given. There's no distinction between them. So that makes it false and sahih but other than itself. Because it don't have the strength to be sahih by itself.
So why? You're correct. So why can't I say I've elevated out of the status of being Hassan? I'm in the categorization of sahih. Why do I need to say other than myself? Why can't I just be sahih by myself at this stage right now? And why is that?
Due to the memorization.
It's a different chain. It goes back to the chain. That chain of yourself by itself does not suit the qualities for sahih. And it's only recognized by being reinforced and supported by other avenues. And this is important now because when an individual is investigating and checking the narration, and he realizes that the hadith is sahih li ghayri, by other than itself, now the concerns may arise. Let me find out what is the illah. What was the cause of why it started out Hassan? Because where you initially graded it Hassan, I might say Darif. So one scholar may say the hadith is Hassan or the hadith is Sahih. It's acceptable. Either of the two, I can work with it. The other one turns around and he says it's Darif. There's an individual inside of the chain. He weakens the narration beneath the status of being Hassan, within the realm of being good. So is this understood now from the realm of Sahih and Hassan, that they break down into two categories? This breakdown is a personal benefit for you. If you said, I'm going to erase 2 and I'm going to erase 4, you could move through with this work unscathed. Will not hinder you, will not harm you whatsoever. This is for your personal benefit. It's going to complement you if I say now, a narration can be weak because of the narrator. It can be weak of some inconsistencies on what is spoken by the narrator, or in recognizing a narrator for himself or herself to be who they are or not who they are. So this kind of goes back to what you were mentioning in terms of, do they classify where it's at? There are classifications. We go back. 1 narrates to 2, narrates to 3, narrates to 4, narrates to 5. It's a connected chain. If I do this, there's a categorization with the science of Hadith that specifically tells me you're missing 2 individuals in the chain. If I did this, it was just 1. It tells me. The term you use, it lets me know. There's one narrator that's missing from the chain. If I did this, and I just gave you this, it lets me know you've omitted the whole chain. And you just gave me the statement of Aisha, no chain. It will identify the term that you utilize, will identify for you its weakness. When we get to the very first narration, there is something concerning a statement of what is presented in the text from Bulug al-Maram. Whose statement is it? Mudraj. If it's a chain of narrators narrating some information, then you give me the understanding that the statement is part of the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it's actually from the narrator. You've introduced something inside of this hadith that is a conflict. So this is something that there is a term for this as well. Idraj, mudraj. You've entered into the narration a statement that is not the statement of the messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now this is important, and we'll conclude with this, inshallah. This was the line. Everything here was accepted. Everything here now was rejected. Because we can work with a hadith that's sahih and a hadith that is Hassan. Well, we won't utilize or use a hadith that is Darif. There is a discussion concerning that. I have a statement from Sheikh Yameen concerning this. And his statement echoes the sentiment of a host of scholars. It's not just his particular position. When it comes to hadith that are weak, what should be our position concerning it? Like when we dealt with the affair of ikhtilaf concerning the scholars, the difference amongst the scholars, what should be our position concerning it? When it comes to the hadith that is weak, and we say that, yes, the scholar said it is weak, but why is he still narrating it and mentioning it as something that he's trying to encourage us with? There is a discussion. It is very befitting. I'm not going to say necessary, compulsory. It is befitting. As you are abreast when you work with the hadith that is sahih and the hadith that is hasan, it is befitting and it is suitable for the individual that holds to the sunnah to understand something of when a hadith that is da'if approaches or he's presented with it, that he understands how to engage it, how to utilize it. What are the parameters? Is there a door to engage it or not? There is a discussion amongst the people of knowledge concerning this. So now, what the?
This comes back to the Sahih Hadith.
Mm-hmm.
The Sahih Lidati.
طيب.
Is it accurate, and can a person, like say us, who we are new to this particular science, we're new to, rather than go the long way and go get a collection of al-rijal, can we look at the Sahih Hadith that is lidatihi and look and see, like, if there are 4 narrators in there, can we assume that 9 times out of 10 that this person initially or at the end said this here, that he got it from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that he is one of the teachers who also had a school?
I believe, inshallah ta'ala. What I would say is the science.
Rather than go the long way.
طيب. Initially, for starters, to engage the books with that lens, you're going to need a certain foundation. Everyone is not going to be equal. I'm not saying that I'm not, so you're not. I'm just saying that that type of qualification takes time and it takes a process of learning the science of hadith to where you are qualified and suited to now judge an individual within inside of the books and determine their status in terms of acceptance or rejection. Kutubur Rijal, the ilm of Rijal, the knowledge of the men within the books of the men, the jarh and the ta'dil. And as Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned this is why you'll find so much variance among some of the people of knowledge concerning a hadith that is authentic or weak, because equality deals with the individual inside of it, his deen and memorization. So some of them, they would disparage an individual character, the jarh on that individual. Some of them, they would disparage the individual based off of memorization. Some will give ta'dil. And I highlighted this statement. I have it for you if we don't get to it inside of the class from Sheikh Uthaymeen concerning the affair of jarh wa ta'dil from amongst the scholars of hadith, that some of them are mutashaddid. They're very severe and staunch upon categorizing an individual. And he mentioned that some of them, they're mutasahil. So how do we know? He says we have to look and we have to see in terms of the narration, the individual who graded it, how does he grade?
That's why Imam Bukhari didn't collect certain people's narration.
Amen. And we have a statement concerning that as well, collectively. And it's very important concerning the science of hadith. But everyone is not qualified or suited for that type of investigation or research, if you would say. There are platforms that have already been established for us. They're not absolute. Outside of the Quran, everything is subject to scrutiny. So the science of hadith, in terms of how you're grading, the eye or the lens may shift from one individual from time to time. Sheikh Al-Albani at times sees the hadith as being authentic, then he changes his position based off of time, review, research, and information that is presented to him. The hadith is no longer authentic. I declare it, it's da'if now. So it's always good to follow up with a particular scholar to stay abreast on their current positions and so forth, not only in terms of hadith, but in terms of fiqh. So it's something that is best for an individual to refer back to those particular platforms. When it comes to what is agreed upon as being authentic, engage it as such, especially if the ummah has acknowledged it. These two books or works, Al-Bukhari and Muslim, binder to binder, we accept them as being authentic. As we mentioned, is it a discussion that not every narration? Yes, this is the case. Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he mentions it in his sharh of Mandumatul Bayquniyya. So, if I can now get back to this, inshallah ta'ala, this is deemed as being acceptable. We're with the lens of what is acceptable, what is rejected. There are five categories. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 now is the topic of discussion. I have one narration here. It's weak. The illah is not severe, but it's an illah that doesn't allow me to get to this level. Struggling. A person's in the ocean that's swimming. They're trying to get their head above water. You just can't seem to get it. Your hands are above water. Your head is not above water. There's another individual doing the same thing. There's a third, and there's a fourth. The thing is, though, it's not severe. We say, you know what? All of these individuals, you get together, you'll make it out. There's only one way to go. You're going into the realm of acceptance now. A hadith can start as being da'if and end up being in the realm of acceptance. I didn't say sahih. I said accepted. From here, out, we accept. You got to work with it. From here down, we start with rejection and we build up, if possible. So we have to look, as we looked here, we had to look to see how we were going to grade. And we saw where things fell. Sahih by itself, other than itself. Hassan by itself, other than itself. The hadith is weak. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 chains. But you say, you know what? The illah, the inconsistency, the conflict, the opposition, it's not severe. It's minor. But it's not letting us get to here by itself. But I say, I got 4 narrations. And I look at them all together and I say, you know what? It's not severe. Collectively, these narrations cannot stay in this category. They raise. There's only one way to go, into the realm of acceptance. I have 4 categories. Tell me where I go. You're saying here? I have 1 here. Anyone say anything else? No one says sahih? I didn't say it can't. I said it's in the realm of acceptance. I didn't want to lead you a particular direction. I left it vague for you. So if you want to entertain it, it's on you. But I'm not going to direct you as to where it could or could not be. You have 4 options. There are 4 options on top.
Yeah, but how could you going from
I'm not saying it's going to fall in any specific of the 4. I'm just saying, outside of Darif, there are 4 options. Where will it go? We know at least where it has to go. And where is that? At least, if you exit from here, where is the least that you could go to get into this realm of acceptance? Exactly what you said. It's going to be good, but other than itself. Because by itself, it is da'if. But by other than itself, it now becomes a good hadith. And this is why it is very important that if you do hear that a hadith is da'if concerning the recitation of Ayatul Kursi or kada wa kada, you don't just take it hands down and run with it and say, that practice is da'if. That dhikr is da'if. That salah is da'if. Look at the discussion from the people of knowledge to see if they say the narration itself is da'if, but ولكن بمجموع طرقها, by the gathering of all of its narrations, يرتقي إلى الحسن لغيره. So now you're working with it. So now you're performing Salatul Tasbih. Salatul Tasbih. فيه اختلاف. Some scholars say it's da'if. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he mentioned that the narration is da'if. There's no way of support for it to escape that realm of weakness. Other scholars, they say, no, the narration is within the realm of acceptance. The beauty of this science is to understand that things can revolve and shift. Nothing is absolute. So when you hear a hadith is in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari's work, you're not dumbfounded if you find that there is a scholar or some scholars that say the narration is weak. A particular narration is weak. You entertain the discussion. You're not dumbfounded if you find that a scholar says that a particular narration is da'if. However, individuals are working with it because of the collective body of its chain and supporting narrations. It has raised now to the level of being Hassan. We work with the hadith that is Hassan. So this is something that deals with the lens of Qabul and Rad. Acceptance and rejectance.
Now, if I bring a hadith to you, and it will, what I inform you, it was naive, but during the dealing with the collection of other narrators, it has moved into Hassan by other than itself. If I get the information from someone, how that's the way they should make it.
For the common folk,
I should inform them of that. I shouldn't just tell you, okay, this hadith is Hassan.
I'll say this. I will say this. For the common folk, this is sufficient. And myself, this is sufficient. If you want to go with like Muhammad Mufti Munir says, the 9 to 5 Muslim, the average 9 to 5 Muslim, if you want to go with this, and I'm using his term to refer to this, what is sahih, what is da'if, what is in the realm of acceptance, what is in the realm of rejectance, and these are the only two terms that you refer to, you're good. Understanding that the hadith is hasan, that the hadith is not sahih, and so forth, is a subcategory. It is an advanced discussion because it's from the science of hadith that everybody's not familiar with, unfortunately. So because we're on this side of the fence, we speak to the people with the language that they know. If you speak to the people with the language that they do not know, what will you do? You will confuse them and you will be a fitna for them. So now if you and I start coming to the people and say, no, that hadith, yeah, it's sahih, but it's sahih li ghayrihi, it's not sahih li dhatihi, you will bring the people to trial until everybody gets aboard. The hadith is sahih, the hadith is weak, everybody's familiar with this. You can run with this day and night and have no conflict. The conflict may be as the individual says, well, no, I don't see it as sahih. I've dropped it down to da'if. Or the person says, no, I don't see that as being da'if. The hadith is sahih. This is the common conversation amongst the 9 to 5 Muslim in our day and time. If you go outside of this, you could confuse the people. You could lose the people. You could put them to trial. I'm bringing you this breakdown and categorization in this format, in this setting, because at some junction, it has to be presented. We have to find a way to get from one side of the fence to the other side of the fence. Hopefully, this class is a stepping stone. Hopefully, it's a stepping stone. Now,
You gotta take me and give me a little bit more. Let's take the hadith about the marketplace. That whoever says these particular words upon entering the marketplace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove 1,000 sins, He will elevate them 1,000 levels. This hadith is on the wall of the mall right across the street from the Kaaba. This hadith is da'if. It's da'if. Everybody says it's da'if. What do the 9 to 5 Muslim that I am, all right, what do
we
I
are.
do? Okay, that we are. What do I do?
Tayyib. Let me see if I can pull this statement from Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala. Tayyib. After presenting these first 5 categories of hadith in terms of acceptance and rejectance, the first 4 accepted. The last one, the 5th and final, it is rejected. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions, وجميع هذه الأقسام يجوز نقله للناس والتحديث بها. Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions, all of these categories, meaning all of these 5, it is permissible for you to transmit to the people and to relay to them. لأنها كلها مقبولة, because all of them are accepted. وَهُجَّةٌ, and they are approved. ma'ad al-da'if, except for da'if. So he presented you with 5. And he said, all of them are permissible for you to relay and to narrate and hold as a proof, except for the one that is da'if, the final one. لأن الذي, or he mentions prior to that, فلا يجوز نقله. It is not permissible to narrate or relay the hadith that is what? Da'if. Again, going back, there are 5 categories. All of them are permissible and a proof for you to narrate and to relay, except the final and 5th. That's da'if. That one, he says, لا يجوز نقله. It is not permissible to transmit it or to relay it. إلا مبينا ضعفه. Except, and this is very crucial, whenever there is an exception, it's just as important to the rule because it is part of the rule. It now has become the rule. It is not permissible or allowed to relay a hadith that is da'if إلا مبينا ضعفه, except that you have to relate to the people that hadith is da'if. I'm going to let you, I think you have something, I'm going to let you say, inshallah. I just want to finish this statement. لأن الذي ينقل الحديث الضعيف, and this is because the one that narrates a hadith that is da'if, بدون أن يبين ضعفه للناس, without relaying and clarifying to the people that it is weak, فهو أحد الكاذبين على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. He is one of the 2 liars upon the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم. لما روى مسلم في صحيحه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال, and this is because of the narration that he's mentioning is relayed by Imam Muslim in his Sahih, that the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم has said, من حدث عني بحديث يرى أنه كذب فهو أحد الكاذبين. Whoever narrates on me a hadith or a narration or a statement, يرى أنه كذب, he sees it to be a lie. فهو أحد الكاذبين. He is one of the 2 liars. وفي حديث آخر, and in another narration, من كذب علي متعمدا فليتبوأ مقعده من النار. Whoever has lied upon me intentionally, then let him take his seat and place in the fire. Even the Shaykh mentions, so now, فلا تجوز رواية الحديث الضعيف إلا بشرط واحد. It is not permissible to narrate the hadith that is da'if or weak except by one condition. وهو أن يبين ضعفه للناس, and it is that you are now going to relate to the people that the hadith is da'if. And this is very important because the common folk, that 9 to 5 Muslim, hearing the statement being from the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, naturally is going to incline towards its acceptance. If you tell somebody that this is the sunnah, the position of the believer in general, sami'na wa ata'na. We hear and we obey. We hear, we accept. We don't push back, we don't challenge, we don't reject. The natural mawqif of the individual that has submitted to Allah Azza wa Jal, that Muhammad is his messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, is going to do what? He's going to accept his statement. But if you don't clarify it to them, they're going to think that it's a hujjah. They're going to use it to worship Allah Azza wa Jal. And this is why you have to clarify to the people when you narrate a narration that is da'if, viewed as being da'if, that this narration is weak. There is a discussion beyond this, that some of the scholars, like Imam Ash-Shafi'i, they will say, you will be allowed to utilize a weak hadith, but with conditions. One, the hadith is not severely weak, because the hadith that is weak, that raises out of that level, its weakness is not severe. So the first condition with those scholars that say there is a door to utilize a weak hadith by itself. We're not saying that it is raised to any particular level other than da'if. They're going to let you work with it with 3 conditions. The first is weakness is not severe. The second is that the subject matter of the hadith itself already has a precedence in terms of targhib wa tarhib. encouraging the people and discouraging them from doing something. It's not dealing with aqidah. You're trying to encourage the people to give sadaqah. So now he's relaying a weak hadith. Say, did you know that the hadith was da'if? I said, yeah, I did. He said, why did you relay it? Because its da'af, its weakness was not severe. It was in a realm of that which was encouragement and discouragement. I was encouraging the people to try to give sadaqah during this month of Ramadan. And the third quality, I believe, I got to go back for the third one. I believe is that the individual, he knows the da'af. He understands and he knows the weakness of the narration. If I can pull it for you. هذا هو. The first, أن يكون الحديث الترغيب والترهيب. Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he's going to mention here 4. Other scholars, they mention 3. Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he mentions here, and this is one of the 2 that I mentioned, أن يكون الحديث في الترغيب والترهيب. That the hadith is dealing with affairs of encouragement and discouragement. I'm trying to encourage the people in this example that I mentioned to give sadaqah during the month of Ramadan. ألا يكون الضعيف الشديدا. The hadith itself cannot be severely weak. فإن كان شديدا فلا تجوز روايته ولو كان في الترغيب والترهيب. The hadith itself cannot be severely weak, and if it is severely weak, it is not permissible or allowed to relay or narrate this hadith, even if it is for encouragement or discouragement. 3. أن يكون الحديث له أصل صحيح ثابت في الكتاب والسنة. That the hadith has to have a basis already established inside of the Quran and the Sunnah. الرابع, the 4th he mentions here, ألا يعتقد أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال. You do not understand or gather from it that the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم said the statement. These are the conditions, all of them have to come together for an individual just to utilize a weak hadith. With that being said, Sheikh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, he concluded and said himself that I still don't see the legitimacy of an individual doing so. Because we've been sufficed with authentic narrations from the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, along with the Quran. And the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, he mentioned, I'm leaving you with 2 things. As long as you hold to them, you will never go astray. Kitabullah wa sunnat al-Nabihi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Quran and the Sunnah of his Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. So even though Shaykh Uthaymeen, he enumerates and he explains and he presents, he himself concludes this is not the chosen path for an individual to take, despite those conditions, because we've been sufficed with Quran and with Sunnah. Now,
Hadith is a story of narration of the prophets. So, in the mentioning of the four categories where it could be used, and I think the last mention is that it's now mentioned that the prophet said this. But if it's the presumption is that the hadith is a story or narration of the prophet, even though you don't say it, would someone still say that, the prophet said this in their own thinking? Could we still assume that a person would, even though you didn't say it, that their thinking is this is from the prophet? Even though in the talk just now, it stated that it's not mentioned.
say it again.
Hadith, the story or narration of the prophet?
In general, because we mentioned that term, typically, with the people of knowledge, they will reserve the term hadith for a narration or a story that returns back to the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of them, they will say it applies to him and other than himself. And that deals with looking at what is relayed. Is it hadith? Is it athar? Or is it khabar? And these are all 3 different terms that are mentioned within mustalah al-hadith. Is it a hadith? And so what is a hadith? A hadith is what is returning back to the Messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, specifically reserved for him. Some of them, they say, no. Typically, it is, but it's not concrete, it's not absolute. And then some of them, they say that the athar is dealing with anyone beneath the Prophet, the companions, the tabi'un, and anyone else that would be outside of them. And then they say that the khabar, information, it refers to the Prophet, the companions, and everyone else that comes after them. It's a more generalized term that envelopes everyone from the Prophet والسلام, and down. So they would say hadith, the Prophet والسلام. Athar, the companions, and down. Khabar, information, say it refers to everyone, and so forth. طيب. I want to give you something.
Before you go,
طيب.
does Imam Bukhari collect Athar in his Sahih?
In terms of aqwal, statements of the companions,
Like the narration, you don't know a person until you eat with them, you travel with them, and you do business with them. Then most people think that it's from the Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Allahu a'lam. Me personally, I have not studied the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari's work to tell you from beginning to end, without question, from the people of knowledge, that there are no athar, or whatever the situation may be. I personally have not reached that rutbah, that level of virtue of studies, if you would say, to know from binder to binder, cover to cover, that there are no athar. They are all a hadith of the Messenger, alayhi salatu wassalam. But we do know that it is a jami'. We do know that it is the jami', and in determining of it being a jami' is that it is going to comprise aspects of the sunnah of the Messenger, alayhi salatu wassalam. It's going to include aspects of biography, history, um, affairs of fiqh, if you would say, as opposed to the sunan. They are arranged quite differently. But again, me myself personally, I do not know. Allahu a'lam.
Are you going to talk about those categories? The Jamia,
They're an advanced discussion. I didn't want to get too far ahead or too in depth because I'm really just trying to give you something that's going to keep your feet wet and engaged with the work of Bulug al-Maram as it comes. Because Ibn Hajar is going to, after presenting certain narrations, he's going to mention certain statements, minding it is a summarized work. So what he has chosen, he's chosen as a point to prove a position, whether it's purification, whether it's prayer. If when he presents a narration and then mentions a statement behind it, if you're not familiar or if you don't know how to engage that particular statement, you won't know whether to give credit or to reject the statement. And it's not to say that you or I are a scholar or capable of accepting or rejecting, because the information isn't there in order for you to entertain the discussion or follow. The door is right there, absolutely closed. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you some information that will help you open that door, so that when it's presented, you don't just see it and say, no, I'm not entertaining this. I'm not going to engage this. I'm going to give you something that will allow you to follow behind to see if the chosen position of Ibn Hajar is what you may conclude to be weighty based off of explanation from Sheikh Uthaymeen, explanation from Sheikh Fawzan, explanation from Al-Bassam, explanation from Al-Rajihi, and even others than them, Sheikh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, wa hakadha. So you have to keep in mind, Bulugh al-Maram is a book of hadith. You cannot enjoy the work, you cannot engage the work fully as intended, except with some awareness of hadith. So now what I want to do,
can you just, before you go, Shad, Shad is spelled with a law or
ذل ولا يكون شاذا ولا يكون ولا يكون شاذا ولا معللا. It's a basic ta'rif of the hadith that is sahih. And as we mentioned, it's unfortunate, but as everyone will say, as long as the hadith is sahih, I will work with it, I'll accept it. But if you inquire further, well, what is the hadith that is sahih? And they say, well, it's accepted. We say, well, that's linguistically, technically. What makes it sahih? Why is it sahih? And as opposed to the other one that you're saying you're not going to accept outright, which is Darif. What's the difference between the two? You say accepting and rejecting. You say that's linguistic. Give me technically, why did it become weak? Why is it viewed as being sahih? This is that discussion. It's a technical discussion, but it's digestible. It's digestible. So now what I want to do, when we're looking at Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he deals with this particular discussion طيب. When you're dealing with the qualities of the chain, and you see that there's an issue with accuracy or perfection in memorization, the discussion has come up. What is the difference between the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim? What is the difference between the two? There is a slight distinguishable characteristic between the two. An individual would say, can I erase this now? Or I'll erase this side and leave that. Three qualities of accepting or taking an individual's information. One, the individual clearly states he's heard from the individual. There's only three. The first level, the individual, he clearly states that he has heard from the individual. The second, the second, he has met the individual, but he has not established that he heard from him. The third and final, 1 second. He lives with us at the same time. The individual that the information, when you look at the chain, that he actually could, these are the three levels of talaqqi, of how the information is going to be given or received, right? So Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he's mentioned in here أحوال التلقي. These are, if you would say, the circumstances receiving is I or E first. I before E except after C. طيب. These are the circumstances of receiving information. And this, in a nutshell, is what is the difference between the work of Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. And then from there, everything will follow. I know. أحوال التلقي. Here, number 2, he has met the individual, not established he heard from him. Not established he heard from him. You said it's not clear? Okay, طيب. This is dealing with let me go back to this. Where is this? My books. طيب. Where are you? طيب. أحوال التلقي. أي نعم. The first one is that he clearly states that he heard from him. 1 narrates he heard from 2, who heard that he heard from 3, who says that he heard from 4. So each of 1, 2, 3, and 4 are clearly stating, I've heard from the next, that has heard from the next, that has heard from the next. So there is an acknowledgement and a assurance. Not only have we met, but I heard him say it. Then there is the aspect of he's met the individual, but it's not clear that he's actually heard from him. This is a great concern that the individual, yeah, you've met, but it's not established that you heard the narration from him.
So I met you, but I'm not sure the narration I heard from you.
It's not established
Not established.
that you have gotten that narration from it. It's established that we've met.
Right.
With the first category, we've all established that the individuals met and narrated upon each other. They've acknowledged that. Then there is a degree beneath that, where you would say, yeah, it's established that they met, but it's not established that he narrated to him the narration. It's just the possibility that it could have happened, but we know that they met. But we're not sure if he narrated to him anything. The third one is he lives within the same time frame, but has not established that he met him. This here, the third condition, is what we refer to as mu'asara. We're just contemporaries. I can live on the East Coast. You can live on the West Coast. It's not established that we've met. It's not established that you've narrated anything to me. You see this third level? This is the level that Imam Muslim sufficed himself with in his Sahih. You see this first level? Guess whose category and quality condition this was? Bukhari. This is the only difference of why they say the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari is more authentic than the Sahih of Imam Muslim. Even though they had the same conditions, this is the one that distinguished between the two. Imam al-Bukhari said it's not sufficient to say that they lived within the time frame and they could have met.
You got some, excuse me, Sheikh. There's some people that don't take nothing from Muslims because of that.
It goes against the ijma' of the ummah. The ijma' of the ummah is that there is qubul, there is acceptance for the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim. It's accepted by consensus amongst the scholars that their works are authentic. Collectively, what they both have agreed upon. There are some narrations that Imam Muslim has collected that Imam Muslim has collected that Imam al-Bukhari has not collected out of indifference with him. And likewise, vice versa. There are some narrations that Imam al-Bukhari has collected that Imam Muslim has not collected out of indifference with Imam al-Bukhari. I want to give you, where is this statement? Let's see if this is it here. That's too far. Tell you, go down. Where is this thing? It's in this iBook. 42. Come on. This is why sometimes it's good to have the book in front of you. Where are we at? Come on. Just bear with me 1 second. Juan. Let's go here. طيب. So now, go back to 45. Once we understand these differences between Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim, Shaykh Uthaymeen, rahimahullah ta'ala, he questions now, so he says, فَمَرَاتِبُ الْأَحَادِيثِ سَبْعَةٌ وَهِيَ. The categories of authenticity when it comes to hadith, there are 7. And I want to give you these, because this plays into the arrangement. Can I erase this now? طيب. The 7, I'll write it out for you here. These are the 7 levels of authenticity. The 7 levels of authenticity. طيب. So the first one, based off of what was presented, what would you think? We already know what is a authentic hadith. We understand the levels of accepting the information of the narrators one to another in a connected chain. And we understand a little bit of the indifference between the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari and the Sahih of Imam Muslim. What would you think would be the first level of authenticity? Meaning it is the highest level of authenticity. This is the discussion amongst the people of knowledge. This is the arrangement in terms of what is the most authentic criterion. Which would mean what? That's a term, it's a phrase, and I'm not shooting it down, but I'm just looking for more clarity, more breakdown. What would that symbolize and what would that mean for us? Character? La. No? La. Not character.
But the two Hadith, Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim, both agree.
This is correct. So, in terms of conditioning, what would it mean?
Statement that we gave earlier about
What would it mean?
the connected chain of marriage transmitted by an individual's upright character due to memorization. There are
No, don't go that far, Sheikh. Don't go that far. That's correct. That's correct. But that's going down the path from a different lens. What we're looking at is in terms of levels of authenticity, we have criterion. What would be the highest level of criteria? Of criteria. We're dealing with, as we mentioned here, clearly stating he heard from him, he's met the individual, but not established that he heard from him. These were criteria that were utilized by the scholars of Hadith, the ones that we highlighted in contrast to one another. Imam al-Bukhari's criteria, Imam Muslim's criteria. So what would be the highest level of criteria for establishing an authentic Hadith? I want more than this. I'll start it off. I'm going to start it off. You were right, Sheikh, but I want to get more from you, from it. It is agreed upon by, and this, I'm going to do this, and hopefully you'll pick this up. I'm going to do this on purpose. It is agreed upon by, and I'm going to do this. If you can't see that, I'm going to do this. I wear glasses too, shit. So I'll put it up here, a little bit more broader and bigger. Ba, kha. This is what I'm going to utilize moving forward. When you look at the books of tahqiq, checking by the scholars of hadith, in order to give you a summarization of who collected the narration, they're not going to give you all of those names. They're going to abridge. And for Bukhari, you will see hakada. For Muslim, you will see this. For Abu Dawood, you see that. For Tirmidhi, you see this. For Nasa'i, you see this. For Majah, you see this. For Imam Ahmed, you see hakada. Bayhaqi, you might see this. So now, as I move forward, I'm not going to just go cold turkey and leave off writing the names, but I'm going to start to introduce this. Because as we go through the work, we're just going to take, if you would say, what would be the initial of the scholar. This meme is the initial of Imam Muslim. This ba and kha, it is symbolizing Bukhari. Tayyib? So the 7 levels of authenticity, the highest level, you're going to get what is agreed upon by Imam al-Bukhari because you get the conditions of Bukhari with Muslim together. So now what does that mean?
الله أكبر الله أكبر
To give you the rest, inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت. طيب. So now we're going to rush through this real quick because there's only 6 that remain, 7 altogether. So if we give you the framework for the beginning, now all you have to do, if you would say, is start stripping away. The highest level of authenticity is that which Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim have agreed upon. Why? Because of their names, because of where they were born, because of who they studied with. Why? Because of the conditions. So the conditions are what are being highlighted here in terms of authenticity, not the individuals. That's why I was saying I want more from you. I wanted to strip away the personalities. I wanted to go with, in this was the basis of the conditions. This is what separated the two. So if I join between the two of them, this is the highest level. You can't get anything beyond that. Not only is Imam al-Bukhari saying it's authentic, but Imam Muslim is agreeing with him upon his conditions to say that it's authentic. So now you have 2 premier individuals with their criteria together. So what would be the next step down? Imam Bukhari, what? Imam al-Bukhari by himself. Tayyib. So you see now why I'm doing that? What would be next? Tayyib. Let's keep going. Don't look at individuals, look at criteria. What is the mustadrak? What is the understanding of the format of the mustadrak of al-Hakim? No. Like we have a sahih, we have a sunan, we have a jami', if we would say, we have a sunan, we have a mustadrak. What is the understanding of the mustadrak? Al-Hakim is coming behind who? He's coming behind al-Bukhari. He's coming behind Muslim. And he's saying the criteria that you use to judge hadith I'm using it, and I found a hadith that you haven't found. That's all a mustadrak is. The criteria that these two had together, I found the narration upon their condition, and it's not in their book. I'm putting it in my book. That's all a mustadrak is. To say things that you've missed, I found. So what have I done now? What's the only difference between his collection and my collection? That's entailed inside of it. It's upon your condition, but you didn't collect it. That's the next level down. It's upon their condition. We're going to say criteria of Bukhari and Muslim. They did not collect it. Keep going down. In the Shaykh Uthaymeen, he mentions here, مَكَانَ عَلَى شَرْطِهِمَا, what is upon their criteria. He said you can also say وَأَحْيَانًا يُعَبِّرُونَ بِقَوْلِهِمْ. They have also used the term and phrase عَلَى شَرْطِ الصَّحِحَيْن. It's upon the condition of the Sahihain, but it's not their narration. Or he says, oh, ala shart al-Bukhari wa Muslim, or it's upon the condition of Bukhari and Muslim. So instead of saying Sahihain, you say the actual scholar himself. Number 5. Keep stripping. Upon the criteria of this one here was upon the criteria of Imam al-Bukhari and Imam Muslim, but they didn't collect it. Here they collect it. Here is just Bukhari. Here is just Muslim. Here is their criteria. They didn't collect it. Here is the criteria of who? Bukhari. He didn't collect it. But it's his criteria. Here is who? It's Muslim. I'm going to put the meme of Muslim. The last and 7th. Upon the criteria of other than these two. So the criteria of Imam al-Bukhari is at the highest level individually, is at the highest level individually. Collectively with Imam Muslim, they're at the highest together. No one's going to supersede them. Individualized, Imam al-Bukhari's conditioning and criteria is at the highest level. So even if he doesn't collect it, if somebody uses his criteria, it falls within the realm of what is looked at to be the arrangement of authenticity. So you have that which is agreed upon, or muttafaqun alayh. It's collected by Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim because it's their criteria. Then you have that which is just from Imam al-Bukhari itself because of his criteria. Then you have that which follows, which is a step down from Bukhari, the criteria of Muslim, but better than everyone else's criteria. But by himself, he's not better than Imam al-Bukhari, but by himself, he's better than everyone else. Then you have that which is the criteria of both of them, but they did not collect the narration. And it's not stipulated in the Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari that his goal was to collect every hadith that was authentic of the Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam. It's not possible. Then you have the criteria of Imam al-Bukhari by itself. He didn't collect it, but it's just his criteria by itself. Underneath that, the man that follows him, Imam Muslim's criteria by itself. And the 7th and final, the criteria of other than these two would be the seventh and the final. This is going to be very important. Inshallah ta'ala, you're going to see the benefit of it. When we start juggling with, well, which narration am I going to take? You're going to start trumping narrations with this. Well, I'm going to start with what is collected by Imam al-Bukhari and what is collected by Imam Muslim together. I'm going to take the narration of Imam Muslim over as you're going to see when it comes to the affair of washing the vessel that the dog has licked. There are riwayat. There are different narrations. Some collected by Imam Bukhari, some collected by Imam Muslim, some collected by, I believe it's at Tirmidhi. So now it's the issue of one narration has some leeway to it, some speculation to it. The other narration is clear. You say, well, we're going to go with the narration that's clear and that's authentic. That has a greater criteria for its authenticity now, as opposed to the one that's vague and the person may look at it and say, well, this one has more expansive play inside of it. It's more knowledge. The way they start to trump narrations, they start to say, well, whose narration is more authentic? This is one of the avenues. So once you understand this, you can plug in yourself. So does this mean that you're a hadith scholar? No. But when you find that a scholar has said that this position is not the weightiest because this narration is found in Sahih Muslim and this narration is found in Abu Dawud, you can follow him and feel content within your heart. I understand that to be correct too. So this is just removing another layer of jahl, another layer of ignorance off of yourself to get to a point where an individual can feel comfortable and console themselves with, I have an idea of what this scholar is saying, and I feel comfortable in choosing this position. I'm not just choosing it based off of he's the most knowledgeable. I'm not just choosing it based off of he's the most popular. He's the most relevant. I'm choosing it based off of the detail that he's bringing me now with something from the science of hadith. Yes, I'm going with the narration that is collected or is upon the criteria of Bukhari and Muslim, even though they didn't collect it. It may be upon the criteria of Bukhari and Muslim, and let's say hypothetically it's within the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba. And then the person said the other narrations in Abu Dawud and Tirmidhi. So you're going to take Ibn Abi Shayba's narration over Bukhari, over the narration of Abu Dawud or at Tirmidhi? And we say based off of the detailed discussion of the people of knowledge, and they say its criteria is stronger, then yes, it's a stronger narration. Based off of criteria, yes, we're going to trump it now. That's going to be the narration that I'm going to utilize and I'm going to work with, based off the science of hadith. So again, this is something that it helps to peel back the layers of jahl, of ignorance with us concerning the science of hadith, because some of the positions of the scholars of hadith, as we mentioned from Sheikh Uthaymeen's work, revolves and is centered around hadith. Did the hadith reach him or not? Is the hadith abrogated or not? Is the hadith muhkam or mutashabih? Is the hadith judging and guiding, or is it vague and obscure? So hopefully this is going to get us closer to understanding the work of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah ta'ala, Bulug al-Maram. Insha'Allah ta'ala, هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Inshallah ta'ala, the next class will be the final class for hadith. I was hoping to get it done in 2. There's still a bit more information that is crucial that remains, and it should not take up more than half of a class, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But the next class will be dedicated just for hadith. Even if we finish before the time frame, we will just stay on that. The following class will be for usulul fiqh. You need some of that, as well as is presented by Sheikh Abdullah al-Bassam in his introductory format for Bulug al-Maram as well. Now, fikum barak. Jazakumullahu khairan.